Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? Clearly, the Saints are looking to add to the quarterback room, and they would like for that to be Deshaun Watson. So we talked about it on Monday. Deshaun Watson being heavily courted right now by the Saints and the Panthers. Reports are that Watson met with both teams on Monday, and apparently the Browns and the Falcons have now jumped into the mix as well. Cleveland would be an interesting one. Obviously, in letting go of Jarvis Landry, they freed up $16 million in cap space. Atlanta is almost impossible to see because of the dead cap number that Matt Ryan is carrying. Matt Ryan has a $55 million dead cap number, meaning if the Falcons decide to move on from Matt Ryan, he would still count $55 million against this year's salary cap. Carson Wentz carried a $40+ million dead cap number in Philly when they moved him last year. That was by far the biggest dead cap number ever, but Philly was willing to eat it to move on. In large part, they could because they had a rookie third-round pick in Jalen Hurts as their quarterback, who's very affordable, so they could eat that big cap number. I don't know how Atlanta, given all of the holes they have on that team, could manage this, but they're at least in the conversation as of right now. Ian Rappaport on the NFL Network today kind of gave a little bit of a timeline for Watson and included a little nugget on the Saints.
I'm told a decision by tomorrow. It should not be that complicated a trade. Nick Caserio has had the offers for some time, and we'll see when and where it is eventually finalized, but that is where it stands right now, and it certainly seems like, above all these teams, seems like the New Orleans Saints seems to have stood out as far as I can tell.
The Saints seem to have stood out the most. It is clear their pursuit is earnest. Jeff Duncan has a column up today where he talks about the Saints' courtship of Deshaun Watson, how Michael Thomas actually deserves a lot of credit for doing some of the legwork there to get Deshaun Watson to New Orleans. As a reminder, Deshaun Watson has a no-trade clause. So while, yes, the Texans have to be willing to do that deal, Watson has to be willing to go to that team to sign off on it. So there are two circumstances that have to meet. We learned that the Colts were potentially interested. Well, why in the world would the Texans trade Deshaun Watson within their division? It doesn't even look like they're willing to trade him within the conference. They want him to go to the NFC, which is why you're hearing teams like the Saints, the Falcons, the Panthers. The Browns are a little confusing, being that they are an AFC team and maybe might not be something that the Texans are interested in. Time will tell there. But it is abundantly clear at this point that this is the Saints' plan. And what's interesting also is that this is a very clear illustration that this is Dennis Allen's team. In the article I referenced from Jeff Duncan at NOLA.com, he mentions that this is not a move that Sean Payton would have made, that Sean Payton was not a Deshaun Watson fan. So this is Dennis Allen's push for Deshaun Watson. And actually, in the Houston Chronicle, John McClain, who's covered the Texans for a long time for the Chronicle, his column today says the same thing. Until Sean Payton retired and was replaced by Dennis Allen, the Saints hadn't shown interest in Watson. But that has changed. Clearly, that's changed now as the Saints are the front runner. So this is Dennis Allen's team, and it illustrates also what direction they might have been going but for this opportunity and for Dennis Allen being in place. Sean Payton was likely going to be committed to Jameis Winston. They gave Taysom Hill the contract last year, but that was obviously with an asterisk where he only got the money if he became the starting quarterback, and he was never going to be the starting quarterback for this team, and we all see that is the reality right now. Perhaps Sean Payton would have fallen in love with one of the prospects and used a draft pick to take Kenny Pickett or Matt Corral or Malik Willis or somebody in this draft. That doesn't seem right like a realistic possibility anymore. And as you've seen that game of musical chairs and all the chairs fill up and quarterbacks landing in places, the Saints' options really have narrowed. I mean, your options really are do a deal for Deshaun Watson or re-sign Jameis Winston. And if not, a sort of distant third option would be Jimmy Garoppolo. But this is where they are. Listen, James Palmer, was on the NFL Network and talked about the Saints, and like this is very clearly their all chips to the center move.
This might be a team that is in on the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes and has a decent backup plan. But we found out Monday that they're all in. When Mickey Loomis, their general manager, and head coach Dennis Allen flew to Houston to meet with Deshaun Watson, that made it abundantly clear. And that showed also that Gail Benson is signing off on the option of landing Deshaun Watson if that's how this goes. Now, Michael Thomas shares an agent with Deshaun Watson. My understanding is he's been championing for him to come. Obviously, he is similar to that DeAndre Hopkins role that he's had in the past. And they have Alvin Kamara. And the other part of this that I find interesting, Mark, is that Terron Armstead has not signed anywhere yet. I'm curious if he is waiting to see what happens with Deshaun Watson, whether that is connected in some capacity, and if that is something that we should keep our eye on how this falls. But at the same time, you saw the stats there with Jameis Winston. With Pete Carmichael, they don't want to change anything offensively. So they know Jameis can operate in it. It's a small sample size, but they do know he can operate in it.
Jameis is not a bad plan B at this point. But if plan A is an option, an opportunity to get a transcendent type player in his prime, you would be totally foolish not to go all in on that. And we also learned today that Marcus Williams is signing with the Baltimore Ravens. The Saints clearly would have loved to have re-signed Marcus Williams. He's a part of their plan, a part of their defense. But in seeing Marcus Williams walk, it very obviously leaves open the possibility of re-signing Terron Armstead, because you're not looking to re-sign both any longer. You're just looking to re-sign Armstead. And if Watson comes in, you most certainly are going to sign him to a long-term deal, to an extension. You can structure that however you want to give it a smaller cap number this year. Point being, they can make the numbers work. And while, yes, you would have loved to have seen Marcus Williams back, the fact that he isn't probably is a pretty clear indication that they preferred Terron Armstead. Look at what happened to the Saints this year when their offensive line was in shambles. It was a mash unit there. And they don't have a great option behind Terron Armstead should he leave. So, man, maybe you get Deshaun Watson, you get that deal done, you re-sign Terron Armstead, you go look in veteran free agency. Maybe you add a Tyrann Mathieu at safety, and you're jamming. The reports are the Saints are also among the front runners pursuing Jarvis Landry right now, along with the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, can you imagine how that roster would look? I mean, you were an instant Super Bowl contender with Deshaun Watson, healthy Michael Thomas. You add Jarvis Landry. Your offensive line is back intact. And then you look at the defense where you're replacing one starter in Marcus Williams, a talented young player. But you could certainly find an option out there of someone, maybe it's Tyrann Mathieu, who can fill that gap in the short term and make you a championship contender in an NFC which feels very, very wide open. We should know, according to Ian Rappaport, as early as tomorrow, as Wednesday. And when we know, we'll certainly talk about it here. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.